So a few years ago, I found myself in a really deep, dark place. Like, it was really bad. I literally had blackout curtains covering all of my windows because I didn't want to know how many days had passed. I didn't want to know if it was morning or night. I just didn't want to exist. That's like literally how I felt. And at the time, I didn't really know what I was battling, but it ended up being a very heavy dose of depression. I just felt so sad and lost and confused. And I feel like most people in my situation probably would have turned to God in that moment. I feel like that's a pretty common thing to do when you're feeling that low. But I've never been a religious person, so that just didn't feel right to me. But that situation did make me start thinking about other spiritual philosophies, and Buddhism is the first thing that came to mind because I'd actually taken Japanese in college, and studying Buddhism was one of the tests that we had. And I just remember thinking that that wisdom was I just felt like it really aligned with me and my character. So I ordered a book about Buddhism and I read it. And then I read another one and another one and another one and another one. And I think I listened to a few on Audible. And one quote that I think perfectly sums up Buddhism is, to study Buddhism is to study ourselves. To study ourselves is to forget ourselves. And I think what they mean here when they say forgetting ourselves is not, literally forgetting ourselves, but more like just not being so hyper-focused on the self and therefore being more immersed in reality and experience and not letting worries and difficulties and stuff like that get the best of you, which I know is easier said than done. This book, Buddhism Plain and Simple, does a really fantastic job of saying what I'm trying to say. I'm not the best with words, but this book is. The Buddha Dharma doesn't ask us to give up control. Instead, it acknowledges that we never had it in the first place. When we can see this, the desire to control naturally begins to wane. The point is not to try to stop exerting control or to condemn the desire to control as bad or wrong. The point is to see things as they are, to acknowledge what's really going on. Through such acknowledgement and recognition, we can cease to suffer. So if you're willing to open your mind a little bit, I am fairly positive that this video will change your life, okay? I really feel that this information that I'm about to drop will change your life. Well, really, it's Buddha's information, but you know what I'm trying to say. And a quick disclaimer, I just want to say that I am not a Buddhist. I do not identify as a Buddhist. I just think the philosophy is insanely wise, and I'm very much into it. I can say without a doubt that studying Buddhism has been one of the most impactful things I have ever done in my entire life. It really helped me through my period of darkness, and I feel like it set me on a better path, and I just think it has the power to do that for so many people. And so I thought today I would love to share with you guys 5 of my favorite lessons that I learned from reading books about Buddhism. But before we get into it, I would just like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Simple Habit. So Simple Habit is this absolutely amazing 5-minute meditation app that is designed to help busy people stress less, achieve more, and just live better. Some of the world's most successful people swear by daily meditation, and for a very good reason. It has been shown to decrease your stress, enhance your focus, calm your anxiety, and just in general make you feel more in control of your emotions, which I think we can all agree that is very beneficial, especially in 2018. I personally love Simple Habit because it only takes a few minutes and it makes it so easy to squeeze in your daily dose of meditation. In the past, I've always struggled to make time to meditate, but with Simple Habit, there is literally no excuse. So how does it work? You simply open up the app, and from there you'll find hundreds of guided meditations provided by some of the world's best teachers. The meditations are categorized for symptoms such as anxiety, stress, depression, anger management, or life situations such as wake up, motivation to study, or tough day at work. They also have a special section to help you sleep, which I've started to make great use of. It is so relaxing to fall asleep to such a calm and peaceful experience. So if you guys would be interested in trying out Simple Habit for yourselves, they are offering anyone watching this video a free 7-day trial. All you have to do is check out the link in my video description and give it a click. So what exactly is Buddhism? Is it a religion? Is it philosophy? This is kind of a common debate, but if you were to ask me, I would say it's more of a philosophy that focuses on mental awareness and mental freedom, whereas religion, when I think of religion personally, I think of prayer, worship, belief, which is something that I don't see in the side of Buddhism that I've studied. A Buddha is simply a person who is awake, nothing more, nothing less. Buddhism is not a belief system. It's not about accepting certain tenets or believing a set of claims or principles. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's about examining the world clearly and carefully, about testing everything and every idea. Buddhism is about seeing. It's about knowing rather than believing or hoping or wishing. It's also about not being afraid to examine anything and everything, including our own personal agendas. The Buddha himself invited people on all occasions to test him. Don't believe me because you see me as your teacher, he said. Don't believe me because others do. And don't believe anything because you've read it in a book either. Don't put your faith in reports or tradition or hearsay or the authority of religious figures or text. Don't rely on mere logic or inference or appearances or speculation. The Buddha repeatedly emphasized the impossibility of ever arriving at truth by giving up your own authority and following the lights of others. Such a path will lead only to an opinion, whether your own or someone else's. The Buddha encouraged people to know for yourselves that certain things are unwholesome and wrong, and when you do, then give them up. And when you know for yourselves that certain things are wholesome and good, then accept them and follow them. The message is always to examine and see for yourself. When you see for yourself what is true, then that's really the only way you can genuinely know anything, then embrace it. Until then, just suspend judgment and criticism. The point of Buddhism is to just see. That is all. But okay, now that we have a little bit better of an understanding about what Buddhism is, let's get into my 5 favorite lessons. Lesson 1. You will experience maximum happiness once you learn how to master mindfulness, or the art of living in the moment. If you make a list of things that tend to make people happy, you will probably notice that all of those things pull people into the present moment. Let's think of some examples here. Sports, music, reading, movies, dancing, video games, interacting with children, interacting with animals. In all of these situations, you're not thinking of the past or worrying about the future because you're practically forced to engage with the current moment. Last week, I tweeted something that I think kind of relates to this topic. I said, you know what I miss most about childhood innocence? Having no concept of time. We all took that shit for granted because it's so easy to find happiness in the moment when you don't know what you have to do next, when there's no such thing as next. Schedules hold us hostage. Now, I totally understand that schedules are pretty much essential to modern day life. I wasn't saying that we should forego all responsibilities and behave like children if we truly want to be happy. But I think it could be very healthy to have bursts where you adapt this kind of mindset. So for me, every Sunday, I do my best to have zero scheduling. I try to be as spontaneous and free as I possibly can. I try to go against the grain of my normal routines as much as I possibly can. So maybe I'll wake up and I'll just jump in the pool. And then I'll ride my bike to the grocery store and eat some fresh fruit in the park nearby. And then maybe I'll go and I'll take a Pilates class. But the point is, I don't know what's next. And it is fucking therapeutic. I am telling you guys, you have to try it. Or if that's not an option for you, like if you can't live free for an entire day, like you have children or some other major responsibilities, I get that. Maybe just try doing this for 15 minutes. Don't think of the past. Don't think of the future. Just take in that very moment. The sights, the sounds, the smells. Just take in every tiny detail and hyper focus on the moment. And I think you'll find that it can be very intoxicating. I want to read you guys one of my favorite quotes from Thich Nhat Hanh. He says, "In order to love, you must be here. That is certain. Fortunately, being here is not a difficult thing to accomplish. It is enough to just breathe and let go of thinking or planning. Just come back to yourself, concentrate on your breath, and smile. You are here, body and mind together. You are here, alive, completely alive. That is a miracle. Some people live as though they are already dead. There are people moving around us who are consumed by their past, terrified of their future, and stuck in their anger and jealousy. They are not alive. They are just walking corpses. If you look around yourself with mindfulness, you will see people going around like zombies. Have a great deal of compassion for the people around you who are living like this. They do not know that life is accessible only in the here and now." Lesson number 2. Try to look at life with a beginner's mind. The saying goes, if your mind is empty, it is always ready for anything. It is open to everything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's, there are few. Essentially, the more you think you know, the more closed off you become to challenging your stored knowledge, which is more than likely incorrect, biased, or outdated. But by channeling your younger self, the version of you who didn't understand hardly anything, you tap into a possibility to learn from every single moment. There's this quote. It's literally one of my top 5 favorite quotes of all time, which is saying a lot because I love my quotes. And I think it really pertains to this perfectly. It goes, "The foolish reject what they see, not what they think. The wise reject what they think, not what they see." It's one of those ones that you really have to say to yourself a few times because it's just so freaking deep. But basically, it's saying, try to remember that what you think you know isn't shit. You don't know shit. And if you remember that, you will become much wiser and way more dimensional. Cultivating your beginner's mind will also help your relationships flourish. When we think we have it all figured out, it gets in the way of communication. It basically puts up a blockade that prevents you from truly listening and bonding deeply with another. And I want to read a bit from a book again. It is a different book. It is called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and I think it sums this up perfectly. When you listen to someone, you should give up all of your preconceived ideas and your subjective opinions. You should just listen to him. Just observe what his way is. We put very little emphasis on right and wrong or good and bad. We just see things as they are with him and accept them. This is how we communicate with each other. Usually when you listen to some statement, you hear it as a kind of echo of yourself. You are actually listening to your own opinion. If it agrees with your opinion, you may accept it. But if it does not, you will reject it or you may not even really hear it. Lesson number 3. Treat your emotions and frustrations with the same patience and love that you would give a child. To explain this lesson, I'm going to read a few pieces from one of my favorite books of all time, You Are Here, because Thich Nhat Hanh has such a way with words. Like, he articulates his ideas in the most beautiful ways that I am just not capable of. So I really want to read this bit to you guys. When you are dealing with pain, with a moment of irritation, or with a bout of anger, you can learn to treat them in the same way you would a child. Do not fight against pain. Do not fight against irritation or jealousy. Embrace them with great tenderness, as though you were embracing a little baby. Your anger is yourself, and you should not be violent towards it. The same thing goes for all of your emotions. In the practice of Buddhist meditation, we do not turn ourselves into a battlefield of good versus evil. The good must take care of the evil as a big brother takes care of his little brother, or as a big sister takes care of her little sister, with a great deal of tenderness and a spirit of non-duality. Knowing that, there is a lot of peace in you already. The insight of non-duality will put a stop to the war in you. You have struggled in the past, and perhaps you are still struggling, but is it necessary? No. Struggle is useless. Stop struggling. Now, this is definitely easier said than done, and I know that dealing with emotion can be quite difficult. But what I find, at least for me, is that the older I get, the less emotions tend to cloud my judgment. As children, we're all quite emotional because the left brain, often referred to as the logical brain, isn't fully developed. So emotions feel very primary. But the more repetitive emotions become, the more predictable they become. And the more often they get you into trouble, the more you reflect and know how to navigate them in the future. So over time, your left brain develops. Neuropsychiatrists actually say that it isn't fully developed until your mid 20s, which is pretty crazy. But you will slowly feel way more in control. But I love this advice from Thich Nhat Hanh because there doesn't need to be this sense of duality with our emotions. Yes, they are frustrating, but let's not fight them. Let's not fight part of who we are. Let's hold them and embrace them. Let them say what they need to say in order to feel better, validate them, calm them down, and then send them on their way. This idea is just very in line with the Buddha's teachings. The first noble truth of Buddhism is the nature of suffering. The Buddha said to embrace our suffering and look at it deeply in order to understand its nature. We shouldn't try to escape it or suppress it. We should look at it directly. We should learn from it. Lesson number 4. Life is like a river. Everything is in constant flow. Do not box yourself in and limit yourself to who you were yesterday, and do not limit others either. Now, I'm going to read another piece from the book, Buddhism Plain and Simple, that literally takes my breath away. It is that powerful. I am not playing around. It is a little long, so please stick with me. Pick up a flower, a beautiful, living, fresh rose. It smells wonderful. It reveals a lovely rhythm in the swirl of its petals, a rich yet dazzling color, a soft velvety texture. It moves and delights us. The problem with the rose is that it dies. Its petals fall, it shrivels up, it turns brown and returns to the earth. One solution to this problem is to ignore the real rose and substitute a plastic one that never dies and never lives technically. But is a plastic rose what we want? No, of course not. We want the real rose. We want the one that dies. We want it because it dies, because it's fleeting, because it fades. It's this very quality that makes it precious. This is what we want, what each of us is, a living thing that dies. Your very own body and mind are also precious because they're just as fleeting. They're changing always and every moment. In fact, you are nothing but change itself. Let's examine this closely for a moment. It's easy to see that you don't have the body you had when you were a small child, nor do you have the same mind. If you look carefully, you will notice that you don't even have the same body and mind you had when you turned to this page a few moments ago. In those few seconds, many cells in your bodies died and many others were created. Countless chemical changes took place in your organs. Your thoughts changed in response to the words on this page and the circumstances around you. Thousands of synapses in your brain fired thousands of times. In each and every moment, you changed. Like the rose, our bodies and minds are fleeting. In fact, everything in our experience, our bodies, our minds, our thoughts, our wants and needs, our relationships, are fleeting, changing, subject to death. We die in each moment, and again in each moment we are born. The process of birth and death goes on endlessly, moment after moment, right before our eyes. Everything we look at, including ourselves and every aspect of our lives, is nothing but change. Vitality consists of this very birth and death. This impermanence, this constant arising and fading away, are the very things that make our lives vibrant, wonderful, and alive. Yet, we usually want to keep things from changing. We want to preserve things, to hold on to them. As we shall see, this desire to hold on, to somehow stop change in its tracks, is the greatest source of woe and horror and trouble in our lives. Wow, right? That is just something else. I could seriously make an entire video on this topic because I feel it is so important. Everything is constantly changing. Nothing has a permanent identity. Whenever we form an idea about something or someone, we have to understand that we are freezing it in the process. We are storing information about this thing or person as if its molecular and chemical composition is frozen in time, but it's not. So we have to acknowledge that even though it may feel nice to freeze reality and block people in so that we have a means of understanding them better, it is really a disservice to the complexity of the human experience. So I urge that you don't shame people for being different than the person they were yesterday, for eating their words, for changing their mind, because none of us are who we were yesterday. And it's a very good thing. Lesson number 5. Nothing outside yourself can cause any trouble. You yourself make the waves in your mind. There's this Buddhist quote that goes, "If your mind is calm and constant, you can keep yourself away from the noisy world even though you are in the midst of it." This is where meditation is key. So meditation helps bring you closer to your beginner's mind, back to a time when the mind was calm. There weren't 10,000 ideas in there about who you should be, what you should do, how you should perceive the world. You were just you. You were simply existing. So to just sit and bring yourself back to that empty slate is to rest the mind. Because, your body goes to sleep every night, but your mind does not. Meditation is how you let the mind sleep. And the more you meditate, the more you learn how to handle your thoughts and emotions, the better you will get at maintaining an optimum level of internal peace. And while I'm still very much trying to master this, I'm nowhere close. I do know that this is true because I have been in the presence of someone who has mastered it. I met a Buddhist monk once, and his energy literally blew me away. Like, I felt calm just from talking to him. His energy transferred to me just from having a conversation with him, and it was absolutely insane. I truly think that daily meditation is the only thing that can get you to such a state. However, if I had to do my best to put the formula for success into words, I think I would say this: whatever will be, will be. If someone is yelling at you, let them yell and do your best not to react until they are finished. If you had a bad day and you find lots of negative thoughts popping in your mind, let them come, then let them go. Be less reactive. Maintain a sort of mental homeostasis of sorts. Don't let anything shake you. Understand the origin of the conflict, let it simmer while you make sense of it, but don't let it come to a boil. This is something that I'm really working on. I wish that I could be less reactive. Think more, speak less. Make sure that when I speak, my words are a perfect reflection of how I truly feel. Make sure that I am approaching the situation with logic, understanding, and love. Well, that's it. Those are my 5 lessons. I hope you guys didn't mind that I decided to just do kind of like an audio, because I started trying to read off my notes and I realized that I really just wasn't doing it justice because my short-term memory is just awful and I couldn't remember anything I wrote down. And I really wanted to get this information to you guys as clearly as I possibly could, because I do think it is so life altering, and I get that not everybody has time to read 6 books about Buddhism, so I really wanted to kind of condense all of my knowledge into this one video, hoping that it could help some of you guys. Yes, so if you're interested in any of the books that I mentioned, I'm gonna go over them really quickly with you guys. So if I could recommend, okay, I have 2. If you have literally no free time in your life and you want a quick, easy read that will definitely change your life, I recommend this one. This is called You Are Here. It's by Thich Nhat Hanh. Amazing. Second one I recommend, which is a lot more comprehensive. It's chock full of information. Okay, like this is heavy. This is called Buddhism Plain and Simple. I quoted this one a few times. It's by Steve Hagen. Amazing. Another one that is very in-depth is Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by, I'm gonna butcher this even though I've taken Japanese, Shunryu Suzuki. I tried. Anyway, I will put it in the description for you guys, but this is great. Then we have Buddhism Without Beliefs by Stephen Batchelor, A Contemporary Guide to Awakening. And I really can't do a philosophy video without mentioning Osho, okay? Osho has tons of amazing books, but the one that I feel pertains most to this topic is probably The Art of Living and Dying. This book is amazing. But that about does it, guys. I really truly hope you got something out of this video, and if you are battling depression, I really hope this had the same effect for you as it did for me. I really truly encourage you to pick up at least one of these books and read them, because I think it can really help bring some lightness into your life during this dark time. But okay, I'm gonna go. I will see you guys really soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.